Plugin marketing is something which makes me cringe. The use of audio poetry such as warmer, cleaner, polished, industry standard, and it might be fun to read these things, but they don't mean the same thing to any two people. They pull on your emotional heartstrings and have you set up to buy on feelings, not logic. Now, I'm not here to throw shade at plugin companies themselves because 99% of them are doing incredible work. And I understand more than anybody, marketing is all about connecting and aligning the values of your product with those of your audience. So I get why these terms exist and why they're used in the audio space. That said, I think in the early days of this channel, I let you guys down. I've gotten very excited by shiny new toys and emotions and lacked the framework to objectively and measurably support my conviction when it comes to new plugins. So that's what today's video is about. We're going to lay some groundwork to detail how to test, analyze, and objectively measure plugins. And also, I'm going to talk to you guys about the graphs, the audio files, and the test data I'm going to make available and package for you to download at the end of each review. Now, as we lay this groundwork out, remember, YouTube objectively measures the amount of like to view ratio each of these videos get. So don't remember to increase the view to like ratio and smash the like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. And now let's get into it. Firstly, we need to ask, what can we objectively measure when it comes to an audio signal? Well, there are 4 parameters of audio fidelity laid out by Ethan Weiner in his book, The Audio Expert, and I've spoken about it here before. Noise. Now, when it comes to digital plugins, the only typical sort of noise you should be getting, unless you're using Waves plugins, is aliasing distortion, and that isn't a good thing either. The second thing is the frequency response, and that's going to describe or basically plot to us in graphs how uniformly a plugin responds to various frequencies. The third parameter is distortion, and distortion is when any processor adds new frequency components that were not present in the original source. There are 2 kinds of distortion: harmonic distortion, which are basically octave intervals, second, third, fourth order harmonics, and those are harmonic, they're pleasant, they're musical. But there's also intermodulation distortion, which we're going to go into a little bit on how we plot and test that in this video, and those that's not desirable. The final audio fidelity parameter is time-based or phase errors, and that's a simple plot which happens in Plugin Doctor where we can see the phase rotation of particular frequencies. Now onto the actual tests we're going to be doing. These tests will be uniform across all the videos on the channel moving forward. Now, in addition to these tests, I'm going to continue critiquing the sales page, any supporting documentation, and the verbiage used by said companies. Now, that's going to result in final deliverables that are going to look something like the following. See this folder here? This is something I set up for the God particle today for demonstration purposes in this video. There's a folder for audio fidelity where it has all the plots and sound and sound results of these tests, as well as a blind test and a null test with 15-second stings that are level matched at -14 LUFS integrated for you to listen to yourself, as well as for demonstration purposes in any particular video. 5 of these tests that produce these results are templated into a Pro Tools session like this, and you can actually download this template of the Pro Tools session in the description below. The other tests will all be using Plugin Doctor, this tool here, which analyzes plugins, and you've seen this on the channel before. Now, for the sake of this video, I've got the God particle set up in default mode to demonstrate. The first 2 tests which I'm going to do in any test will be a linear analysis of both the frequency response and the phase, which will be output in a graph with Plugin Doctor. Here we can see the linear analysis, the frequency response of this Plugin Doctor unit at Unity, at default. Next, I'm moving pretty fast here, but next, because it just excites me, this stuff. Next is the phase, and these phase, it's very subtle phase rotation. It's actually really good. This plugin is just is more so the utility of the multiband compression and those crossover points, but that's good. The next test we're going to be doing in each of these plugin tests will be a dynamics mainly for dynamics processes, and it's tone steps. Now, these tone steps plot the curve of the attack and release times, basically playing a sine wave in and out, and then you can see the release, the attack. And I'm going to do this at 110 Hertz in the low frequencies, that's an A, at 220, at 440, at 1 kilohertz, 4 kilohertz, and 10 kilohertz to see if, depending on the frequency, the shape of the attack, the shape of the release, the way that unit interacts at different frequencies changes. And I know on this one it did, and you can see in the test files if you download them below. The next two tests will be to assess distortion. The first one one is a sine wave sweep from 20 Hz to 20 kHz. And then with exporting the processed version of this, it will plot in an FFT spectrogram that will show the amounts and types of distortion introduced to a signal. Now here in Isotope RX Audio Editor, I'm going to explain to you what's actually going on here. And we can see this graph here. Now, the God particle actually adds third order harmonic distortion, which we can see in this lighter blue line here. The one thing the God particle doesn't do very well is oversample internally. Now, the sample rate this test was done at was at 48 kilohertz, which means the total bandwidth is just shy, or technically, in theory, it's 24 kilohertz is the uppermost frequency it can reproduce. Now, a third order harmonic means it is 2 octaves above the fundamental. So the first order is the fundamental, second order is the first octave, third order is the second octave, and we can actually see that this has no oversampling in the God particle, because at 8 kilohertz, okay, the third order harmonic, which is 24 kilohertz, which is all the way up here, it hits that threshold of the bandwidth, and what ends up happening is after that, that frequency is then folded back down as aliasing distortion as the sweep goes higher and higher. And you can actually hear this right at the end of the sweep. Have a listen to this. It's really funky what ends up happening. And I'll actually put Isotope Insight so you can see it happen in real time. Did you hear that? You see that second frequency sweeping in and out? And I think if we start a bit lower, we will actually hear it from that there is aliasing distortion, and that's why this graph is important, because where is that graph? There we are. It helps us plot out, well, where are the harmonic distortions? Where's the aliasing distortion? What's actually going on there harmonically or distortion-wise with the signal? Now, the second test is to do with intermodulation distortion. This test is laid out in the Audio Expert by Ethan Weiner. So intermodulation distortion is the introduction of new frequencies that are the sum and difference of 2 present frequencies. So what ends up happening is in this test, I've got a 19 and a 20 kilohertz sine wave tone set up to generate. Now, the sum and difference of them one frequency should fall far out of the bandwidth of the sample rate, which will come back as aliasing distortion in this particular plugin. However, the 1 kilohertz intermodulation distortion is what we're mainly monitoring, and how loud that intermodulation distortion is. So I might, for the sake of this exercise, mute my speakers because I don't want to really hear this. I just want to plot this for you. I want to go into this over here, okay? And we are going to plot a 19 and a 20 kilohertz sine wave coming in, and our main point of contention is how loud this intermodulation distortion is at 1 kilohertz. The rest is aliasing distortion. We already know this doesn't oversample. It's not that pleasant high up, and it's causing some of those issues. However, the intermodulation distortion is negative 120 dB. So it's very inaudible in terms of it's not producing much more back into the signal. And this is just another test to cross-check and double-check that how does it manage those sort of distortions, whatever plugin or tool we're using. Now, the final 2 tests are going to be listening tests. The first test is a level match null or delta test with the original signal. Ultimately, this will reveal all the differences between the original and the process signal simply by flicking the phase of a level matched raw version. So here we've got the null test raw, here we've got the null test device under test, and so you've got the God particle and one with that inverted, and when you play this back you're going to hear all the differences. And this is more an audible test. We're listening for any tonal differences, dynamic, what elements are popping out, which ones are completely cancelling out, harmonically how is it changing. This is more inquisitive than purely test data, and I'm just going to show you how this comes together, or what this actually sounds like. So that's basically a null test, and the files will be output for you guys to A/B yourselves as well, and even do your own null tests if you so see it fit. The second test is going to be a double blind test, where I share with you the results of me using Hoffer Blind AB to distinguish the differences between a processor, a stock alternative, which I'll seek out for, and also the original signal bypassed. Now, I'm considering a success rate in a double blind test of greater than 65% across 20 tests. And if I can do this, well, then I consider there to be discernible differences in audio qualities that I can objectively say I can spot out the qualities in this one over another. And I want to do this on every single one, because sometimes I went into tests and blind AB'd and very much surprised myself to find out that the one I really thought I didn't like, I actually liked more, vice versa, and this will be really good test data to bring to you guys when it comes to using these plugins. I'll conclude each of these videos with my own personal observations for you to take or leave, because I want you to know that with every plugin review I do, it will only be of plugins and tools which I use, and in the past it's stayed the same. Anything that's on this channel is of tools and things I use day in, day out, unless I've otherwise specified, because there's been a few left of field videos I've done where I've just went on a shopping spree, bought a whole bunch of plugins, told you guys about it, and said, hey, I'm using this for the first time, and I let you know that. But however, if it's a plugin review, a serious one, I'm only going to do it if I use that plugin and it's something I back, because I feel you guys as viewers, as subscribers, because you've hit the subscribe button, will genuinely benefit from in your own work. Now, I'm going to leave you with that there. I'm excited for what's to come on the channel. I'm really happy I built this together. Feel free to download the assets in the description below. They're just direct links to Dropbox you can click on and download straight away. And until next time, take care.